Welcome to a brand new wave, drowning out the noise that's tame. Liberty whispers through the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that's safe, algorithms put on the day. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unpanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
I am the legacy of Jennifer Kaiser. And if you like truth, like the messaging of truth, join the ministry of truth. Follow us on Rumble. Let's start something. Let's build a legacy of truth, a real ministry of truth. But we need you. We always need you because it takes a community first. Welcome to episode 76 of Legacy News. It's not Crypto Wednesday because we're in the search for God.
Hey, it's pretty good timing there.
That was pretty good timing, man. So, also, everybody, before we jump on, you want some merch? You want this coffee cup? Look
Ooh,
at that
sexy.
face. Look at that. For $20, head over to that store down there, scrolling at the bottom. Free shipping. Get yourself a coffee cup. What's cool about where the image is, when you're drinking on this side, you get to kiss old Lysander Spooner. Idol worship that Spooner. And on this side, if you drink on this side, well, now you see the image, but I'm seeing the logo. So now you get to you get to idol worship our logo while you drink your coffee.
Kiss the ring of loyalty.
So kiss
the
the
legacy
ring of
ride.
So welcome in, everybody. On this Wednesday, weird Wednesday. Normally a crypto Wednesday. Normally we're talking about crypto, but we're doing things a little different today. So why is that, Andrew? Why are we doing things different today?
Well, it's a continuation from Monday's episode. It's a little long video. We got about a halfway through it, maybe a little under halfway, and we wanted to finish it off.
We did want to finish it off, and I think it's a good thing that we're doing this because I think we have a lot of soul searching in today's world today. We're missing something. And judging by, I hate to bring up the news, the latest news as of right now, but I mean, it's evident that there are there's a lot of evil in this world, and the evidence is pretty apparent when truth is being hidden. The veil is being covered. The veil is covering the eyes. We saw that with Trump's comments, Bondi's comments, the FBI uh, fakery, the lies, the deception when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein saga. The saga still continues, and you're never going to hear the truth. No, don't trust people that are enmeshed deeply in evil because you'll never seek the truth. They will always bury the truth. It doesn't matter if it's Epstein, doesn't matter if it's your neighbor from down the street that keeps stealing your rake. So, but
Well, I mean, it's marketing. That's what politics is, right? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll give you your rake back if you do me a little favor yourself. So,
yeah, I mean, is it marketing though? Are they what are
well, I
they
mean,
marketing though?
the truth,
Mm,
Truth Social.
Truth Social. That's so laughable. Truth Social, the greatest echo chamber that you'll ever find yourself on. I've been on Truth Social. It's literally just a bunch of progressives. I mean, conservatives. Sorry, just bitching and moaning about Democrats and gloriously worshiping and praising their orange messiah who comes on and greets his masses with his lovely words of deceit and just bullshit. It's disgusting. No different from Blue Sky. The Democrats do the same thing. The left go to their echo chamber of will to worship their demonic cult. Now they don't specifically have one idol. So the right has an idol. It's Donald Trump.
Orange Man good? Is that what
Orange
you're
Man.
implying to some
I'm
people?
implying. No, Orange Man is a creep and a pedophile. Oh, did I say that out loud? Donald, what were you doing with Jeff and Bill back in the 90s together? You were like this with each other. So
Why does he
what
have
were you
14
three
or
doing?
15 phone numbers of yours?
Exactly. Enough of that. Let's get off of the negative. Enough negative. This is a positive experience at this point. Anything to go off of?
Just kind of pick up on what we left off not yesterday, Monday. And let's go.
Okay, Baldy. Go forth, Baldy.
As you wish.
People who kind of want to skip over that work, right? And I'm not going to say I'm doing it perfectly or all the time or anything like that. I just know that there is work. I agree with C.S. Lewis. There's a hump there, and so, something that has to die, something that's going to be painful, right? So, in the sense that the freedom, the idea that you could put this on his shoulders, there's a temperament, there's a holdback from sort of that boundless ego, right? Or not that boundless, but that monumental sort of,
The vanity.
I'm charging ahead with God's stuff, right? God is always at my back. Well, no, you're, as a Christian, hopefully what you're always trying to do is look back over your shoulder and make sure you're really still aligned with God and not the other, not demanding the other way around, that God is, going your way kind of thing.
Yeah, God is a propulsion, not a goal.
Yeah.
And the the humility, the vanity is what needs to die. And I mean, I've gone through that with philosophy, and I still go through that sometimes. The vanity of, I think I'm right, but the reason and evidence point in the other direction. And I regularly shock a listening world with what seems incomprehensible twists in my direction. What are you now? Are you an atheist? Are you an anarchist? Are you this? Are you that? And that is humility for me. That is, okay, what is the evidence? What new information do I have? But I tell you, Amy, I mean, one of the things that would be nicer, and again, this is not an argument, but one of the things that would be nicer is surrendering yourself to abstract principles feels like being slowly run over by a glacier. Because you are surrendering yourself to things which are not human, to mere, not sentient, to abstract principles, to reason and evidence. To be a slave to reason and evidence is not to love your master. Because your master is not a person, it's not a consciousness, it has no virtue. Reason and evidence are abstractions. To surrender yourself to reason and evidence, to oppose your all too human ego with mere abstract, cold, inhuman principles, feels like, hey, I wonder if I can wake up today and enslave myself to a robot, to an abstract mechanical principle. And the idea of surrendering my ego to an all-loving father figure, to a consciousness that I can love, then I am not a slave because I'm in love. And if the slave loves his master, is he really a slave? And that idea that I can surrender to something I can love rather than something that is an abstract principle is, what is that old phrase? Hamlet says it in a much darker context. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Because it has not escaped me. Even years ago, when I would talk about it, Amy, it has not escaped me that vanity is at the root of the state. Vanity is at the root of socialism, of central planning, of communism, of fascism.
Let's touch base on one thing, on what they're referring to, in my opinion, and that is for those who are antithetical to theism, the ego death coming to fruition of being more than yourself. That's effectively what an ego death is. I'm gonna let you take the floor on that one, Andrew. This is your topic.
I mean, it's really about the perspective. Like you said, it's more more than about yourself. It's about building out stability and an understanding for the things in your life that, like your kids or family members, and making sure they have the stability to build off of in order to lead a successful life. And sometimes it's not so much about, your needs, but theirs, and you'll have to take the back seat in order to maintain, that normalcy, that stability for people, and to build off of, like I said. So
God is in each and every one of us. Doesn't matter who you are, what religion, what faith you believe in, there's an inkling of God in all of us. It's just goodness, it's love, it's virtue. You can be a Hindu and still have a significant a significant pull of God. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's just wanting to be selfless and be beyond yourself. And that's the strive for what in terms is an ego death. The ego death is stripping oneself of your jealousy, of your impotence, of your guilt strickenness, of your sin, to acknowledge that you are more than just your ego. There's more to you than to strive for the go, go, go. I can take over the world. Because if you don't understand that life is more, then you're never going to have meaning in your life, and you're going to falter, and no matter how successful you may think you are, you're going to fall into a deep, deep state of melancholy. Take athletes, for example, that strive all their life to be the best in whatever they're trying to be. Like take Andre Agassi, for example, right? He spent most of his life and his career striving for one goal and one goal only, and that was to be the best of the best in tennis, to win Wimbledon, and just strive for greatness. He divorced himself from all reality and effectively his friends and his family. And after he retired, there was nothing left for him. So he went into a deep depression. Why would he go into a deep depression? Because he's not striving for, he's not doing what he loved, what he put his life forward for. All he knew was tennis and trying to be the best in trying to fulfill the niche of being one of the best, being a champion. And when he no longer was what he personified himself to be, he had nothing. His purpose was gone. That's not what purpose is. Purpose is finding meaning through meaningful relationship, not just your selfish desires. If you focus on just you, yes, you're going to be gloriously successful. You're going to strive, you're probably going to be the hardest worker ever. But at the same time, you're also going to be the most depressed because you're pushing everybody else away as you're in tunnel vision mode. So effectively, don't be Andre Agassi. Be you, but with more. Kill your ego and create a balance between yourself and others.
It's also a matter of time preferences that you want to have the stability, not just for, like I said, for your family, but if you've got goals, to reach them in a succinct order. And it's what's it called, not a framework, I should say, a roadmap to reaching goals over periods of time, and making sure that you try to keep it as balanced as possible, so that you can, because you only have so much time in your life. The more you work now to try to build something for yourself, the less time you have in the future for the people in your life. So it's really all about time preference, like I said, and resource management, and trying to be optimal with what your goals are in person. So in your in the bigger picture.
Nobody here is saying that you shouldn't have goals and you shouldn't be striving to better yourself in life and be on top of the world. But at the same time, you can't let your goals define you.
Yeah.
You're more than just your goals. I mean, and yeah, you make a lot of money. Okay, great. Does that
A good
define you? If that,
a, a good example of what I'm talking about is Ric Flair, right? All he did was work, work, work the business. The wrestler, Ric Flair,
Mm.
and his family suffered because they they weren't in the picture. He wasn't there to help make sure that they were stable. And eventually, his children, or one of his children, passed away from an overdose.
yeah, David actually, the only way that he thought that he could get close to his father was to become part of the business, and he was actually very up and coming. He was actually trying. He was doing very well in his pathway towards a potential successful career. Yeah, and the drugs and the alcohol got to him because it's a hard life. And on top of that, he was missing a lot. He didn't have a purpose. His purpose was to use wrestling, in my personal opinion, to use wrestling as a way to seek his father, Ric Flair, Ric Flair's approval. He wanted to be closer with his dad, so he jumped into the business, and he inevitably lost his life. And
Sure, Rick
now
has
his
to live with
sister.
that every day. You know.
Oh, I'm sure. He lives with it every day, and I'm sure that he's still an alcoholic because of it, because he's never stopped being an alcoholic. And it's probably gotten worse, and he's still alive. Everybody, he's still alive, and he's been an alcoholic his entire life. I mean, so he lived in the fast lane. His daughter, Ashley, who goes by the moniker Charlotte Flair. I mean, she jumped into the business after David. Um, Again, that's a piece, in my opinion, that's a piece of trying to hold on what you've lost to try to rekindle that, because it's a memory. It's faceting a memory. It's holding on to a memory. She was not actually designed to go into this business. She's been one of the most successful stars in the business, I think partially because they've pushed her because of who she is. But she was not, this was not her, but she jumped into it because David was gone.
Yeah.
She was missing a piece of herself within her brother David. So she jumped into the business. So it just goes to show you got to have some sort of balance in your life. Otherwise, you're just going to lose yourself. Don't
Yeah.
be like David, trying to search for his father's approval, and he ends up dying of an overdose because he hasn't really reached the pinnacle peak of his father's approval, because his father was an asshole. Sorry, Rick, you're an asshole. God bless you, and God rest your soul. Hopefully, you don't wind up in the lake of fire.
Let's jump back into it real quick. It's getting a little deep.
Because the idea that someone can figure
Good.
out what other people can do and will not be corrupted by power is to say that human beings can gain the power of a god without becoming a devil. I don't believe human beings can gain the power of a god without becoming a devil. That is how devils are created.
Yes.
Isn't that how Satan was created? I shall be as God, he said.
Yes. Yes. And pride, actually. Vanity, because pride, vanity would be a part of pride, or a subset of it. But
Well, to me, pride can be shared. You and I can
Yes.
be proud of the instruments that we mastered. Vanity to me means I'm special. I'm exempt from the law. I'm the one who should dominate. I'm the one who
Yeah,
should
no,
use
I-
force. And it's the creation of an eddy or a backwater of opposite values, like the state. I can initiate the use of force. I can order you around. I can print my own currency. I can declare war. I can control. I can condemn. I can jail. I can punish. But no one else can. No
Yes.
other institution can.
How?
That to me is devilish. And
Yep.
the degree to which communism and socialism have their atheistic elements, it's almost like they want to get rid of God so that human vanity can take control of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, there's nothing I can disagree with. Yes, I mean, there's, you know, it's tough. You know, I have had a lot of these kinds of discussions online, and you know, sometimes, you know, I'll surprise. I'm very, by the way, I'm very pleasantly surprised at how this is turning out. This conversation is wonderful, but I have had conversations with atheists that haven't been quite so wonderful, and sometimes I will apparently kind of shock. You know, sometimes atheists will get kind of this idea that not believing in God gives them some sort of extra morality or superior morality than the people that they meet. And I'll say, well, look, if I look at the body counts, if I just look at body counts, right? And you look at the 20th century, you know, what a nightmare the 20th century was, you know, in terms of, you know, you've got Holodomor, you've got Holocaust, you've got the Cultural Revolution. I think the Khmer Rouge too. I want to add that. That's another communist. I'm trying to remember if I got my history right. I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, killing in factories. And they're all atheists. You know, I'm like, you know, I'm willing to buy that I'm not better than anybody else. Oh, yeah, that's for sure. But I don't know if atheism really improves human nature. You know, I'm not sure I'm willing to go there, you know, with that moment. And yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's why, you know, this concept we're going to just take, you know, somehow, and I think, you know, when I talk to people online, they're concerned about evil. I mean, the thing is, it's universal, right? This concern about evil, and there's this sense that I get is that they want people to be good. You know, they want them to be good. So they're looking and saying, okay, oh my goodness, religion. You know, look at the terrible things people have done for religion. Let's just, you know, let's carve that out of them, and it's done, and we've made them good. And I'm like, you know, and it's a difficult concept to say, no, we can't carve anything out of anybody. You know, we got to work with what we've got, right? What's in front of us, you know, and there's no evidence that carving religion or God out of somebody is going to improve the situation. And I will also state the converse. That is, forcing people into religion doesn't seem to do a heck of a lot of good either. You know, it's not, you know, I cringe, you know, I'll sometimes talk to fellow Catholics and they're like, well, let's force Catholicism. Well, no, we've missed the point, right? I can't save a soul by forcing them to do what I want them to do, right? Christianity is very clear on the point. The point is to love God. I can't love somebody who's being forced on me. Right. So, you know, they're difficult conversations sometimes, because I think there's just there's ironically this universal want to have things better, to have people be good. But there's a lot of rabbit holes that people fall into. You know, it's difficult stuff.
And how do we limit, Amy, the will of human dominance? Right. How do we limit the will of human dominance? Because there are so many rewards, material rewards, power rewards. You know, we are so wired to love power. And of course, there's some arguments around original sin. There's some arguments around dopamine and how you get more resources by climbing up the hierarchy of the tribe. But we, for whatever reason, we are so hardwired to love power over others.
Yes.
And how do we counter that? How good have atheists been at pushing back the universal human hunger for dominating other human beings? That is, and this is why, you know, when I talk about the problems I have with not atheism as a sort of set of arguments, but atheism as a social and political manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
How do we push back, right? The non-aggression principle is live and let live. Unless you are initiating force against me, I shall never initiate force against you. But the problem is, of course, it's so valuable to initiate force against others, especially in the form of the state. It is so incredibly profitable.
Yes.
Look at how much money politicians make after they're in power. Look at how hungry they are to stay in politics long after they retire. They're addicts. They love it. They need it. and to have people walk up to your throne and kiss your ring, and to be able to bestow gifts and to be able to bestow punishments on people. If there is a devil in our heart, that is what he most hungers for, and that is what he most promises us.
Far be it, far be it from me to glory except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by which the world has been crucified to me, and I to the world. Galatians 6, verse 14. Bear your cross. Everybody has a cross to bear.
Everyone's got demons.
So, getting into politics here. Nothing should be forced. Nobody should force anything. As far as a astute Catholic, defend the faith, defend Jesus, defend God, defend the Trinity, defend the faith. Through defending the faith, the works of goodness will come. The best way of defending the faith is not, it's great to know your scripture, meditate and pray with God, intercede through Mary, have her pray for you and all the saints and all those who have gone before us, who are long dead on this earth but are alive in heaven. So intercession is very important, because they have a direct line to God, living in dominion with him and in his grace and his love and communion in heaven. But it's not scripture, and it's not intercession, and it's not speaking and meditating with God. Those are great qualities. Know your scripture. Know your New Testament. But the best defender of faith is to live for Christ, through Christ, by showing that you live for and through Christ, that the Holy Spirit is working within you. Do good. Live in the footsteps of how Jesus lived. You see a homeless man, a bum on the streets, I don't care if he's really just fake and gay and robbing people from lying. It's a deceptive technique. The fact of the matter is, perhaps that's not a deception. Perhaps that's really a homeless man on the street, bum, looking like shit, needs some help, possibly just needs you to acknowledge him. Give him a couple dollars. Give him a cigarette. Just any kind gesture. Just a little example. But that's how you defend the faith, through showing the goodness and the grace that God gives to you through yourself upon the others. That's love. You defend by doing good. Those are your good works. The faith, and through the faith comes kindness, comes the works. You reinforce everything.
Form comes when, people have had a difficult situation. People acknowledge that, hey, I've been there, maybe not in your specific situation, but I've been through a lot of difficult things, and I try to help, move forward and make a better example for other people.
Be like this man. Don't idol worship him, libertarians and anarchists. Don't idol worship him, but be like this man. Do good. He was a deist, so he didn't believe in the Trinitarian God of the plurality within one. He didn't believe in the Christian ideals, but he lived the Christian ideals. Truly. Because everything he did in his activism and his legal work and his voluntarism was Christianity. It was through love. He wanted to open minds. Even if it didn't happen in the 19th century, his works, his writings, his activism transcended the decades after and a century to 2 centuries later. 2 centuries later, after Lysander Spooner's life, people are talking about him and talking about his works because he
Often.
was against evil. He was standing against evil, the satanic demonic forces that bestow all of us. Perhaps Jesus manifests himself all the time in other humans. Have you ever heard that theory, actually, Andrew? I forget what they call that, but
No, I've not heard it.
that Jesus, the living Christ, oh, it's through the Holy Spirit. I mean, some people are just so endowed through the Spirit, but at the same time, they don't completely get it. You know, like you can take Socrates, for example, or Plato. You could effectively call them Christ followers or Christians, but they didn't know. They were filled with the Word. They were fulfilling the Word and filled with the Holy Spirit through the grace of God, but they didn't necessarily know who or what all of it was. So is Socrates in heaven? Because he didn't get a chance to accept Jesus. I think
I
he
mean,
is.
it's possible. I don't see why not.
I don't see why not at all.
I mean,
And for us,
Jesus is what, the second coming of Adam? Is that right?
yes, they say that Jesus would be he's the second coming. He's the fulfillment of Adam.
So, I mean, if that's the
And
case,
Mary
then there's obviously a
Mary Eve.
timeline, so he would fit right into that timeline, even if he wasn't, directly exposed to the knowledge of what Jesus went through.
And for all you Catholics out there, whether you agree with what came out of Vatican II, all you trads out there, and all of you Novus Ordo. I don't speak Italian, Latin, but whatever. Vatican II is actually a great piece to look into because Vatican II actually discusses a little bit of that, of what for those before Jesus, where do they align? It actually discusses that with people with figures like Socrates. It's interesting, actually. Vatican II, if you actually read it and understand it, you'd have more of an open mind, Catholics. I think everybody just gets simmered down to tunnel vision, to where it's just, we want the Latin Mass. Who gives a shit if it's a Latin Mass or in English? The only thing that matters is God.
That's true.
And us, all of us. So who cares?
You ready?
Diving deep. Let's roll.
All
We're
right,
almost done,
here we go.
everybody.
Paradise will look like power, control over other human beings, to be one of the few lone farmers on the planet of human livestock. That is what human beings thirst and are desperate for at the moment. In the future, peaceful parenting, whatever, right? But right now, that is where human beings are. How do we push back against the hunger to bully, indoctrinate, control, exploit, subjugate other human beings? And I don't know that atheism has a strong answer for that. I think that in certain elements of certain belief systems, and we're talking here about Christianity in particular, there is a pushback against the thirst for power. Because you have infinite power, I want to say that rules over you, but that you are accountable to. And that infinite power vastly dwarfs anything you can achieve against your fellow man. And that infinite power demands and requires for virtue to exist that you give people their choices. There is no virtue without choice in Christianity. And so the idea that we are going to bully and dominate and control other people clearly would be a demonic impulse in this theological approach, because by dominating other people, we destroy virtue in the world. We destroy the capacity for virtue in the world. It is only charity if it is voluntary, if it is the welfare state. It is compulsive, it is coercive, and that eradicates virtue and its possibility in the world.
When I go to church every week, it's an exercise in love your neighbor, because I believe that socialism, communism, it violates a commandment: thou shalt not steal. Right? It's not a work of charity to tell the government, to go up to tell your legislators to take from an atheist, a Jew, agnostic, and do your charity work. That's not charity. That's something, but it's not. And I believe that's why, the moral reason why socialism and communism fail, it just starts all wrong. You've just stolen. So what's the good? What endpoint do you imagine you're getting out of that? And it's difficult because, at least in, just as a subculture, especially in American Catholicism, it's sort of like, it's great to give to the poor as a voluntary method. I mean, I was listening to that conversation before. I don't, I have less worries about, say, a free medical clinic, or say a school, or even a church being built, in a town, versus giving away money. But, in the end, when but that operation, at least, as you had mentioned in that particular podcast, it's all voluntary. At the very least, we can say people gave that out of their own pocket, right? So whatever damage it does is going to be exponentially less than, if it does cause damage, than being forced into it. So, it's difficult. It is difficult, and it's just one of those things. When I went back to Christianity, I said, I'm just going to have to deal with this. This is part of what God is asking me to do, is to deal with this moment, and to deal with this culture that, we need to think about. It needs to be rethought, basically.
And it's to me, it is very well put, of course. And I just wanted to add that for me, it's impossible to ignore the fact that Christians are not trying to scream down people with different opinions. And that is coming from the left, and that is coming from the much more secular perspectives in society. Because, of course, if virtue to exist, it must be chosen.
Yes.
That means that there must be a dedication to freedom of speech.
Yes.
Right? You must listen to your enemies. You must accept that they have a perspective that you must work with. You cannot scream people down and force them to accept a particular perspective, because they have not chosen it. It will not stick, and God does not recognize the virtue of perspectives that arise from fear or bullying or threats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I remember in one of the other segments of a podcast, you said you'd stated it so beautiful. The concept of free will to somebody. I think the caller was about 20 or so. But yeah. What you had just stated and had stated in that previous podcast. Without choice, whatever I'm compelled to do is nothing. It's not a virtue. It's something I have to do. So, it's not really a virtue that I pay my taxes. I mean, that's something that I have to do. right? But if I give to a charity, if I well researched a charity and I've given up something that I really wanted, well, I made a choice that wasn't compelled, and that's a virtue. So, which doesn't happen very often, actually. Let's admit that, right? I don't
Yeah,
do
and
that
of
very
course,
often. But, it's,
everything that I do is dependent upon the virtue called freedom of speech.
yeah.
And if Christian theology, modern Christian theology at least, supports the concept of debate, of freedom of speech, of conversations, rather than compulsion and threat and coercion, then it's hard to avoid when you look at the protests that greeted Warren Farrell's speeches, that greet Milo Yiannopoulos' speeches, that greet other conservative speeches, or critical or skeptical of feminist speeches, or critical or skeptical of socialist speeches. The intolerance of the regressive left has a demonic aspect because they genuinely believe that you are a better person if they can force you to shut up.
Yeah.
And that is not a theological perspective. I mean, if you could force somehow an atheist to stop talking about atheism, that does not make him any more virtuous in the eyes of God. It means that his capacity for virtue has diminished and your capacity for virtue has reversed.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I also feel, I watched those protests too, and I also tend to feel a little sorry for them, because at least, I remember being that young. I mean, it feels like, ages ago, 42, but, and I didn't really have a strong family background. There was, a few family issues, but, I remember being really lost. And when I see those kids like scream, like they're children, like little toddlers almost, and I'm like, they do have the responsibility. They are adults. They are, 18 to 21. But then I'm also like, what happened just 5 years ago? And I'm not even talking about Christianity or religion, but what happened that their lives are so empty that their thought, they're so empty and insecure that somebody just walking onto a campus to give a talk that they could just ignore, or go bowling, or go to a movie.
Your mic's muted.
The state would want that they would have it that adolescence stays in a perpetuity. That word. Whereas Jesus would want it that you have the heart of a child. You hold on to the innocence that all children have, because it is the children that have expressed the love that they know that they need, they know that they want, and they know that everybody else wants. Jesus wants your childlike heart. He wants you to come heart to heart as a child with him. You are a child of God. We are all children in the eyes of God. We're still his children. The state would want it for us to be physically children, psychologically children, emotionally children, because the state can
benefits their
easily
power.
yes, it's easy to manipulate a child to do your bidding, because a child just wants to be loved. Don't grow up. That's all I gotta say. Grow up. Grow the fuck up is what I gotta say. But keep that heart of a child. Keep that child love, that childlike love that we all have deep down inside of us. Maintain the inner child, but grow the fuck up. Don't
I
let the
want
state win.
what I was thinking we was talking about earlier was about the free speech and everything. Is about the recent interview that Tucker Carlson came out with, and how he had to use a translator, but he was getting the opposite side of the argument and making it known for people so they can make a decision for their own make their own decisions as adults. And the censorship regime, the regressive left, as he called it, they wouldn't want that to happen. That they want to minimize objectively different opinions in order to maintain their power, like I said earlier. So just something to keep in mind.
Again, they want to control you, so you are not responsible for anything. They
By
can't have
manipulating
you
your
held.
emotions.
Yeah, they can't allow you to acknowledge accountability, because if you're able to be accountable for yourself, then they can't be accountable for themselves. I mean, look at the Epstein situation. They're not accountable for themselves. They're proving it every single day. I mean, we're $36 trillion in debt in counting to fake money. Render upon the Caesar, everybody. Just give it away. It's all fake and gay anyways. So give it all. Who cares? It's fake anyways. But that's the concept that I think Christ gives us, is the acknowledgement of responsibility within ourselves, the accountability within ourselves, and within the realm of others. Community, relationship, any relationship. A marriage doesn't work because you're having great sex. Great, that's awesome. You're having great sex. Well, where's the connection, though? There has to be intimacy. There has to be something more than just banging abroad every night, right?
Mutual respect and compromise. Stability.
Yes, exactly. Fantastic answer right there, Andrew. Mutual respect, compromise, responsibility. You are accountable to each other. You are the yin to her yang, and she is the yin to your yang. Anything more? Let's finish
No,
it off.
we're pushing it. We got about 10 minutes left, and we're almost up to the hour. So let's go ahead and finish this off, like you said.
But they're going to sit there and scream. What happened? What happened to when I think about decay in the society, I mean, I'm looking at that and thinking that's the future, right? If we're not, what happened?
And that's the vanity. That's people
Yeah.
who say, I know you're wrong before I've even heard your argument, and your argument is immoral, and you're evil, and you must be stopped from speaking. That is the demonic vanity of certainty prior to knowledge. And that is, and it's the same thing with the central planning. I know how you should live your life. I know exactly what you should buy and what you should sell and where you should live and how you should be educated and your profession and maybe even who you should marry. That is a demonic form of narcissistic megalomania that means that there's nothing above you that's pushing down on you and saying, be humble, at least relative to me.
Yes.
If there is nothing bigger than man, how does man avoid the lust for power? I don't know the answer to that. Clearly, universally preferable behavior hasn't solved all the problems in the world. Clearly, 99.9%. But and these are I fully look. I accept, just because people are going to be surprised at what I'm saying, and I fully accept that these are all arguments from effect. Right? You said personal observations that would fall into the God as possible column. And the thought that keeps roaming around in my head is, what is more likely for people with God, with the Christian God? What is more likely for people without God? And that remains an open question for me. Because there's lots of evidence, and I could spend the rest of my life attempting to collate it.
Mm-hmm.
But the secular societies are dying.
Yes.
And the religious societies are expanding. And that is a piece of evidence that is pretty consequential to me, and certainly was not really available to me just as recently as a few years ago.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, if I offer what I see just from like spending 10 years of my life, 10, 15 years, as agnostic, close to atheist, and then, making what I would call a very gradual transition, into Catholicism. I had read of a woman who was Jewish, and they were completely not observing. And they decided they wanted to get back into the religion, so they made a point of just going slow. I mean, it was one of those things where I decided, you know what, if this God is real that created the universe, took 4 billion years, because I believe everything about evolution and Big Bang. There's nothing that conflicts with me personally with all of that and God. If he took 4 billion years, he's probably not going to be all that impressed that I took 2 weeks to, turn my life around or whatever. So, and I had a family to consider too. So we took it slow. And so, there's this sort of this gradual change, right? And it's hard because, from a, if I get the science geek out in me, I didn't hold every single variable in my life the same, right? So I can't, I can only have got, sort of this, before Catholicism, return to Catholicism and after. There's other things going on in my life too. But, from my perspective, what I see that, as I've gotten more into the habit of praying and things like that, is that at least I feel, and I can't prove it, but I feel like my temper has improved. My patience has improved, right? And I'm at a point where, where before children, from a completely secular, especially feminist point of view, children are a burden, right? They show up, they mess up your lives, they mess up your career, their money, their time, their effort, right? And then if you can kind of get to a point where you almost flip the script almost, right? Well, I've got God now, and life isn't easy, right? I mean, life is this strange, half fragile, half hardy thing that life keeps appearing, but it's very fragile, right? And all of a sudden, life is a gift. It's not a burden, right? And yes, you still have to worry about money. Yes, you still have to be responsible and those kinds of things, but you're also less responsible for, this is going to sound weird, but you're also less responsible for the parenting in general. And that's not to say you neglect your children. Please don't even go there. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, God has given you this gift of a child, and God has created this child, right? Your job is to get that child to productive adulthood. Right. And that's actually a gift, right? Because this child doesn't even have to be here. Right. So that's your job, is a stewardship job almost. And it's a joyful stewardship job. And in that sense, and not every person who is religious, I'm aware, there's a lot of religious people who are like, grim up, that's the way to go. But to me, that's not what I wanted out of Christian, or I felt like I didn't feel like I needed to have Christianity be a slog. I felt like I looked at it and I thought, I don't think Christianity is supposed to be a slog, right? And so, for me now, I'm like, I would love to have more children. It's just not a big a deal. It's not, the burden is not so much as it was when I was sort of just alone. And I'm really alone. I had my husband, I love him and all that kind of stuff, but it's just not as hard, I guess, is as well I can say. And it's a more joyful thing. So, and that's, that might be part, at least that's from my eyes, that's part of maybe what the secret sauce is. It's not, to be able to say, and it is objectively a burden, but to add something more to it, to add an element of joy.
Right. Right. And, as I've become more immersed into the issue of different intelligent levels, the degree to which philosophy can replace religion for the majority of people is an open question for
Yeah.
me. I don't know the answer. If the only way that people can understand the power of the unconscious is by anthropomorphizing it into a deity, which is the case I've made in books before, and if maybe, I mean, maybe I don't have anywhere close to the capacity to understand everything that's going on in my mind, and if there's a way of abstracting it to a deity and that gives you a way of working with it that's more productive. Again, philosophically, I understand all of this, and this doesn't, I'm not sort of wooing myself or fogging myself out of rigorous arguments I've made in the past. I'm not, I'm fully conscious of that. But I don't know a way to encapsulate everything that goes on in my mind. And where do I put, and what is my relationship to all of the things that occur in my mind and in my body and in my experience that I don't have any direct access to? And again, this is not philosophy. This is just the challenge of where I'm at. And if I am fairly unique in my intellectual capacities, am I expecting everyone to be Beethoven? Why do you listen to music when you can just make music? Well, and these are questions I don't have an answer to, but they're important, because if the left has its way, then a lot of the people that I like hearing, I can't hear.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of people who like hearing me might not hear me if the left, the more progressive left, has its way.
Yeah.
So these are not abstract questions, and getting them wrong would be fatal to my dreams, to my passions, to my motivations, to my dedications. So it is, I danced before in ignorance. Now I know it's a minefield, and I really have to be more careful where I'm putting my feet.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to have those experiences. So,
Right. Well, listen, Amy, what a fantastic conversation. I hope that it was interesting to you. I found it fascinating, and I really, really appreciate your perspective, as I say, to you as to others. But you're welcome back anytime. And I really appreciate you, bringing this topic to an atheist. Hey, what if you could tell me how God could exist? That is... clearly you were sent by Jesus. But no, I appreciate that question, and it gave me some room and some scope to discuss things that I have really been thinking about, and I don't have any strong answers to, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak of these things.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure to come on the show. So thank you.
Thanks, Emil.
All right.
Never stop questioning.
No.
It's okay to have a little bit of skepticism. Never stop questioning. Evidence is evidence. Proof is proof. There's no way you can prove God, and there's no way you can disprove God. But the evidence is right there in the good book and beyond.
Go outside.
Life. Yeah,
look at your environment. You can see all the evidence in the world that you need.
You cannot tell me that there isn't a great designer, because this world is too complex. If it was just evolutionary status, man, this world would probably look like stick figures. We'd just now probably be evolving away from stick figures if that was the dimension we lived in. Perhaps there is another dimension out there that's just stick figures. And if so, that proves that there's a great designer. Because
That's about right.
He's a funny guy. Perhaps there's multiple dimensions and God is just one big giant troll. And that would be awesome.
Could be a gnome.
Could be a gnome. Could be a gnome. He could be a gnome. So vote gnome Mad Dog 2026. LNC, baby. Let's bring back the libertarian in libertarian.
Oh, that's
Gnome,
a good deal.
Mad Dog. Yeah, gnome Mad Dog for LP chair and vice chair 2026, everybody. So, but that was a very good, insightful, and concise explanation
Okay.
between two different views. Actually, that's what we're missing in today's day and age.
Emotional control and steady, rigorous understanding of people's different perspectives.
No, I just think of the secular secular leftism. They're just children who like to scream.
Well, that too.
So stop screaming at each other, leftists, and let's sit down and have a conversation. And I will teach you that you're not happy because you're not accepting God's grace. If you're willing to have a conversation. If you're not, I'm not going to force you. But you're not going to force me to your communism. Your stateless, atheistic, murderous communism.
They muddy the waters to make it seem deep.
Mm-hmm. And with that, make sure while it ticks at the bottom, go get yourself this beautiful cup. I know you want it. I know you want it. So I'm gonna stop because I'm actually about ready to drone him out. Andrew, there's an old man next to you.
What? Where?
Just kidding.
Oh,
Nah, he's not actually here. He's not actually here. Can you answer the door though? I hear a knock.
I think I can try. Hey, what are you doing here? He's here.
I told you he's probably here. He loves you.
Oh! Help me.
I'm gonna go ahead and call 911 because something's happening.
Ah!
Have a good day. Have a good evening, everybody. See you on Thursday for World Blockchain Roundtable.
I'm going to have to leave now, but I was sure I came in by that door over there. Hey, man, where's the door to get out of here?
Oh, it's right over there, sir.
Right over where?
The exit sign? Exit sign? It's that door right there.
That red sign?
Yeah, just go right that way.
Okay.
I think it went down the wrong door.
Where am I? Hey, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's not the right door.
Sir, you're gonna want to go to the one with the exit. You went to the door to the side there.
I went to the right doors and where you pointed me to, you fuck.
I pointed you to the exit.
Man, you're fucking with the wrong guy.
I'm sorry.
You see this bulge on my hip? You know what that is?
That's a gun.
That's a Glock. You're fucking with the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Don't ever send me to the wrong door.